Hey Internet! My name is Julian and I'm back with another movie review. Today I'll be reviewing The Lost City of Zed, and this film is based on the book of the same name written by David Grant, which is actually based on a true story. Now, I wasn't planning on seeing this film originally this week, but my girlfriend wanted to see it, so we went. It actually turns out I enjoyed the movie more than she did, and that's because she was expecting a different type of movie. So the trailer is a little bit deceiving, but if you've read the book, then you kind of know where this movie is heading. This movie is about Percy Fawcett, who was a British explorer from the Royal British Army who was sent to map and survey the Amazon in Bolivia at the dawn of the 20th century. On his first trip there, he discovers evidence of a previously unknown advanced civilization and plans on returning. The movie was directed by James Gray, stars Charlie Hunnam, Robert Pattinson, Sienna Miller, and Tom Holland. It has a runtime of 141 minutes and is rated PG-13 for violence, disturbing images, brief strong language, and some nudity. Now, the movie was good. It wasn't great. It was just good. If you're expecting like an action adventure movie, you're barking up the wrong tree. This is more of a drama adventure. It has a lot of story aspects and a lot of information in there. It's very slow paced, but the story is still overall pretty engaging. Now, I don't know how accurate the movie is to the book itself, and I don't know how accurate it is to the actual story of Percy Fawcett, but it is still pretty interesting to hear about his adventures, even if it's a little off. Now, the story has some underlying tones of, I guess you can call it racism and xenophobia. When he first discovers these natives of that land, and he reports back to England in the, I believe it's the Royal Geographical Society, he states that, there's this advanced civilization that I found, or possibly have found. There's pottery that they've made. It could be older than the English Empire itself. The members actually make fun of him and say that these natives are savages and nothing else. Everyone seems to treat them like savages, and that's all they are. But on his point of view is they're just normal people that have a different way of life and see things differently. So it's like a good little moral of the story kind of thing, which I think is pretty cool that they added that. I don't know if that's how Percy Fawcett actually felt within his real life. I don't know if that's just something they exaggerate. He's willing to reach out to them, learn the language, bring them gifts, do everything that's possible so that way he can interact with them in a safe way, and looks at them as a positive and not as a negative. So I think that's a pretty cool way to do that within this movie. Now, I did enjoy the development of the characters in the film, especially how Percy's obsession with the jungle grows over time and how he essentially becomes obsessed with going back there so often. Now, the film does look good most of the time, although there are a couple scenes that I noticed that it seems that there's some type of filter on it, and the filter seems like it was shot on film and then aged over time. Now, I don't know if that was something that was meant to look like or what it is, but it just, I did notice it. It wasn't even throughout the whole movie. It's not like it was shot like that on purpose. It just feels like certain scenes had that filter. Another thing I did see that was kind of wonky, it seemed like there was blurs on certain scenes, and it's not like a perspective thing where you have your foreground in focus and your background out of focus. It seemed like it was almost done on accident. I noticed it one or two times where it seemed like someone accidentally dragged a blur tool across the scene and they just forgot to edit it. Now, I was thinking maybe it's the theater itself, maybe the projector itself. There's something wrong with it, a bad bulb or smudge on the lens, but it didn't happen throughout the whole movie. It was just in a couple scenes. So, like I said, I don't know if that filtering and that like blurriness are meant to be, if it was just a mistake during editing or whatnot, but it is there. Other than that, though, like I said, the film does look really good. The time period, environment, and dress and apparel were all portrayed as you would expect that area to be. Early 20th century, you still are coming out of the Victorian era into like the new industrial area. You still have gowns and you're going to balls all dressed up. but you have your regular clothing, and it's kind of trousers and a shirt and that kind of thing. So it's not 24/7 dressed up as Victorian. You have, when he's in the jungle, he's got his exploration outfit on, and things like that. So it's pretty cool that they kind of portrayed it pretty accurately, from what I would expect that time period to be like. The jungles, are very realistic and lifelike, and seem uninhabited, just as they portrayed in the movie. I would expect that to be in real life, and I'm sure they shot in a jungle somewhere, probably not in Bolivia itself, but they made it look like it would be something like that. The natives there also looked how you would expect natives to look in that time period. So everything that in that frame of mind was actually pretty cool. I really did enjoy that. Now, as for the audio, I did notice at times Charlie Hunnam and Robert Pattinson's lines seemed mumbled and indistinguishable. And I know sometimes when you speak the English language in certain dialects, it can get broken up. I know they talk fast sometimes, and the accent itself can be very harsh to hear, but it wasn't throughout the whole movie. So I don't know if it was just poor editing or poor recording or what it would be, but it just seemed at points that you really couldn't understand what they were saying or hear what they were saying. And it kind of crummy because you kind of lose a little bit of the story in that point. Now, the soundtrack didn't really do anything for me either. There really wasn't much of a soundtrack. Usually, like I said in the past, those soundtracks usually make the movie. You could have really good images and really good story and all that, but if you have a poor soundtrack, you're not going to feel as enveloped that you would in the movie itself. So it's just not there for me. Now, the two biggest flaws in the movie that I felt were continuity errors, and back in my review for Kong Skull Island, I had the same complaint. And it's just the use of disposable characters that they don't have a backstory or a name or anything, but they just randomly show up to essentially either die or move the story along. In this case, the first expedition they do, there's a fisherman that's trying to catch fish, and when the natives start attacking, he falls in the water, gets eaten by piranhas, and that's it. He wasn't there prior to the story. He just when they showed up on the raft in the scene, he was just there. The other one that I noticed as well, and it's not even just with people, but also with equipment and horses, that they just randomly said, "Oh, we've had this the whole time," was in the second to last exploration. They have one of the members is really sick, and they decide to send him back to camp, to one of the camps at least. And originally it was just like the three of them on the exploration, and then magically when they're about to send him off, they've landed. Now they have a couple more people with them. They have horses and all this equipment and stuff that they didn't have previously, and I just felt it was it seemed really out of place. Now, I don't know in the book if there's more story to all that, and they just didn't have the time to put it in because the movie is pretty long, but I just felt like a little bit more explanation of it would have been better, instead of just saying, "Oh yeah, these horses have been here the whole time," or "Oh yeah, these people have been here the whole time." But in that case, it's not the case. It's just they randomly are just there. Now, the second big flaw that I realized were how the children in the movie aged. They didn't really seem to age correctly, considering the time span was 19 years. And at the beginning of the film, he has a son named Jack, who's probably around 2 or 3, I want to say. He's able to walk on his own and kind of speak a little bit. Not 100%, but he's got words. By the time we see him again within 6 years, he seems older, but not enough. And not only that, but by the end of the film, they casted him as Tom Holland, and you would say if he's 2 or 3 at that original point you met him, he'd be like 21, 22. And honestly, I don't know if it's just a poor character choice or what it was, but Tom Holland does not seem like a 22-year-old. He just doesn't have the face for it. So it's just very strange. He also has 2 other children that happen within the movie, and they have the same aspects for them. They just don't seem like they age correctly. And now I don't know if it's just because they chose certain actors for it, and they just were stuck with it, and that's what they had to deal with. But if that's the case, then maybe don't show them, or make the time frame a little bit more fitting for them. So that's really my big 2 issues with the film. Now, my favorite part of the movie, whether or not it was intentional or not, was a quick nod to Ian McDiarmid's character of the Empire from Star Wars. Now, he is in this film. He plays George, who is in charge of the Royal Geographical Society. And when him and Charlie Hunnam's character are talking, they mention the British Empire, and they kind of do one of those, like, end the sentence on Empire, pause for like 3 seconds. It would have almost been like a fourth wall break if they both looked at the camera, but they didn't. And I thought it was a little bit of a nod. Now, like I said, I don't know if it's intentional because they do talk about the British Empire a lot in the movie. So it could have just been something that they said, but it's something that I picked up on that I thought was kind of cool. Now, if you enjoy adventure movies, but more of a drama adventure without that much action, if you like the time period of early 20th century, and you like true stories, I would recommend this movie. If not, I would probably either not see it or wait for Redbox or Netflix to show it, because it's still a pretty interesting story, and it is actually well acted, and the visuals are pretty good. The scenery is really nice. But other than that, there's really not much more to it. So if you enjoyed this review, give it a like. If you want to see the first of my reviews in the future, go ahead and subscribe. And if you would, go ahead and share with your friends and family. Now that's it for me here, so thanks for watching.